I didn't get to say goodbye to my granddad. I wasn't there during his final days. My dad had to tell me through FaceTime that my granddad had died. Hello, and welcome back to the 5th episode of Destination Happiness with me, Sophie. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the bad as well as the good while travelling. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I think a lot of people romanticize travelling. Yes, it is incredible, the most amazing thing you will do in your life. But I think it's really important to keep your expectations realistic and also to remember that there are bad days as well as the good. Not everything is all sunshine and rainbows, and if you go away expecting it to be like that, then you'll probably be shocked. I'd say, yeah, a good 90% of the time it is incredible. You're away, you're expanding, you're meeting new people, exploring new cultures. You will thank yourself for having the courage to go away. But that last 10% sometimes is not so happy. You'll have days when it will just hit you that you're a million miles away from home, you're not with your friends and family. Maybe if you're ill, you won't have your mum there to look after you, you've got to look after yourself. Maybe one evening you'll just be doing something, minding your own business, and it will just hit you that you're on the other side of the world, away from all your friends, all your family, and now the people that you spend most of the time with, you've only known for a few months. It kind of makes you dizzy, missing out on key points back at home. You know, although it may feel like it, time doesn't just stand still while you're away. Time still continues back home. It kind of just feels like whenever the time comes that you decide to go home, you'll pick up from where you left. But actually no, like, your friends will be engaged, your parents would have got older and visibly aged. You may not have the same connections with your friends as you once did. Things do change. Sometimes you don't know when it's going to be the last time you see someone. For example, I didn't realise, but back in September I said goodbye to my granddad for the very last time, and I had no idea it would be the final moments with him. I didn't know that, and if I didn't go travelling, then I would have been able to spend longer with him, but I guess that's all just part of it. You've got to make a sacrifice in order to grasp something else, and that is the sad truth of it, but it's the way it is. Just to think, if I had not gone travelling, if I had stayed at home, then I would be able to spend more time with my family, and it's just horrible to think that you have to choose. So let's get into it. Thanks to Apple and WhatsApp and Instagram Meta, we now have this thing called FaceTime, or video calls. I can't really imagine a time, however many years ago, when people would go travelling and they couldn't call their family back home. They would have to send letters, which wasn't really that long ago actually. It's great. By the touch of a few buttons, you're able to send a signal all the way up to space, comes back down to Earth, and in real time you can speak to your dad, you can speak to your mum, see how things are getting on. It will be nighttime for you and daytime for them, or vice versa. And yeah, you can just have a normal conversation with them as if they were in front of you. FaceTime was only recently invented back in 2011. Yeah, you could make phone calls previously to that. The very first telephone call was in 1876 by Alexander Bell, the inventor of the telephone. Fun fact, Bell thought ahoy should be used to answer the phone. So you call up your mum, she'd be like, ahoy! If my mum said that to me now, I'd crease. Maybe I'll say that to her when she next calls me. Ahoy, mum! How art thou? Thanks to FaceTime and video calls and all this technology, we're able to speak to our parents as if they were there. We can see their face, we can see their smiles as they're talking about what they've done for the day and tell them about our stories, things that we've been up to. But a part of that means that you can see your parents aging visibly while you're on a video call. Like I said, time doesn't stand still back at home while you're away. If you're gone for a year or 2 or 5 or even more, then it's really hard seeing your parents age. It's sad, and it just makes you realise that your time is limited on this planet. Part of you wants to stay home and spend your time, your precious years with your family and tell them how much you love them, but then the other part of you knows that there's so much to do in this world and you want to see everything while you're young and you have the energy, and you have to choose. But through FaceTime and seeing them looking differently, it just really hits you. Another thing that happened a few months ago to me was my friend Lily. She FaceTimed me. She had amazing news that she got engaged to her wonderful fiance James. Now that's such fantastic news, and I'm so happy for them. They've always been so good together. But then again, that just reiterates that time doesn't stand still back at home while you're away. Your friends are out there buying houses, getting boyfriends, getting promotions and getting new jobs and buying new things for their home and getting engaged, having babies, getting married, and you're still out there just enjoying life. It makes you kind of self-reflect and feel, oh my god, all my friends are doing all these things. Should I be doing that? Should I be buying a house and getting a job and moving up the career ladder? But the answer is no. Everyone has their own timeline, and people move through their lives at different paces. For example, Vera Wang was into her 40s before she designed her first dress, and today she's one of the world's top designers. Another example is Samuel L. Jackson, incredible actor. He was 46 when he landed his role in Pulp Fiction. I love that film. Again, Morgan Freeman. He was 50 years old when he was in the movie Street Smart. I think you can kind of get the picture. What I'm trying to say is everyone is on different timelines. You aren't meant to be doing a certain thing by a certain age. I think a lot of people have this thing in their mind where by the time they're 25, they should be settled down with a house. By the time they're 30, they should have children. It's great to have goals and set yourself targets and ambitions that you want to do X thing by X time, which is great, but don't need to put pressure on yourself because other people are doing the same thing. Everyone has their own path and their own times, and that's okay. You don't need to feel pressured to be doing the same things that other people are doing at the same time. A few weeks ago, I woke up to several missed calls from my dad, and it was early morning. He never called me at that time, and immediately I thought something was wrong. I called him back, and he gave me some sad news that my granddad had passed away. I was all the way at the other side of the world. There was nothing I could do. I couldn't be there for my dad. And I felt helpless. I didn't get to say goodbye to my granddad. I wasn't there during his final days. And I kind of felt guilty because I couldn't be there. And my dad had to tell me through FaceTime that my granddad had died. It took me a while to kind of take it in, because when you're all the way at the other side of the world, it's really hard to imagine life back at home differently. I felt hopeless. I was all the way around the other side of the world. I felt guilty for being happy and enjoying myself. all I wanted to do was be teleported back home, even just if it was for one day, and be there for my dad, give him a big hug, kind of like be present to say goodbye to my granddad. And none of that was possible because I had decided to take my life elsewhere. I didn't know when the last time it would be seeing my granddad. I knew he was getting old and I knew that I would be gone for a long time, but I said that the last time I went away and then the time before that too, so it felt like he was invincible because every time I went away I would always see him again. My dad kept me informed, and on Wednesday, the 22nd of March, he called to say that the funeral would be held on Monday, the 27th, so not even a week later. I know that live streaming is a thing for funerals, and I asked whether that would be an option. What the family had agreed on was that it wouldn't be live streamed. I don't know if it's because they didn't think it would be appropriate or they just didn't think it would be necessary. That meant a lot to me to be there for my dad and also in honour of my granddad. I really, really wanted to just come home, even if it was just for a few days. That morning, I thought, okay, well, I can't come back to England. It's too expensive and I've got work. And then I took a step back and thought, okay, well, yeah, it's expensive, but I can afford it, even though it's expensive. And time off work, I mean, if I don't ask, then I won't get, right? I called up my manager and I said to him, look, my granddad's passed away, the funeral's on Monday. It would mean the world to me if I could take some time off and go back to England to be with my family. And I didn't really expect them to be as understanding as they were, but immediately they said, yep, take as much time off as you need, book a flight. They knew that nothing is more valuable than family. So I called my dad back and I said, look, work's allowed me to take 2 weeks off. I'm going to look at flights now. The flights are like 4-5 grand. It's a lot of money, but I'll be able to earn this money back in a few weeks' time. I won't ever be able to go to visit my granddad's funeral again. So I booked a flight there and then, went to pack my bags, went to work in the evening to do the night shift closing the bar. As soon as I finished work, 2 a.m, drove to the airport. 3-hour drive, got a flight from Mackay to Brisbane, Brisbane to Sydney, and then a 24-hour flight from Sydney to London. Dad picked me up, and within 2 days I was home. I'm so grateful that I booked that. It would have been easy for me to say, oh, like, it's too expensive, I can't get the time off, it's a long way to go. I fought through all those barriers and I made it home to be back with my dad for my granddad's funeral. And here I am now, recording this podcast from England. It's great to be home and surprise my mum, see my dad, taste their cooking and be in my own bed. See my cats, cuddle up with them. I'm right here recording now with my little baby Charlie. Charlie is attacking me. There will be moments when you're travelling, just going about day-to-day life, and you realise how much you miss your family. I went to Coles the other day and I walked past the little rice pudding pots. You know, the ones that you get in the fridge and they're normally in a 2-pack? Well, me and my dad used to get those in Tesco, and we pick up the Bon Madame ones, and after dinner in the evening we'd watch a film or Carl Pilkington or Top Gear or something. And as I was stood there in Coles and I was looking at that, I thought, gosh, my life has changed so much since then. I bought the rice pudding pots. While I was eating it, it just took me back to England, took me back to Brighton, being at home with my dad and eating that. And it almost felt like I was back at home. The rice pudding transported me to be with my family again. But then you realise, actually, I'm still in Australia. I'm a long, long way from home now. I think there were a few other things in Coles, like chocolates, and my dad always makes me this egg and tomato dish. It's his speciality. I bought some tomatoes and I bought some eggs because I wanted to make that too. I just felt like I really missed some home comfort, and I bought the food just to remind me, just have a taste of being back home again, even if it wasn't real. I also bought some. Now, this may sound silly, and maybe it is silly, but I also bought some ginger while I was at Coles, not intending to be teleported back. I was making something, and you know when you cut into ginger and it just lets out all these aromas and smells? Well, as soon as I smelt the ginger, I instantly got taken to my dad's kitchen, because my dad's side of the family are Chinese and we use ginger in almost all our cooking. So we always have heaps of it at home. Have you heard that song by 21 Pilots? It's called Stressed Out. There's a line in it and it goes, "Sometimes a certain smell will take me back to when I was young." It reminded me of that. Sometimes it hits you that you're on the other side of the world, away from all your family and friends, and the people that you spend most of your time with, you've only known for a few months. It kind of makes you feel a bit dizzy, sort of ungrounded. You think, where will I be in the next few months? Sometimes the people that you meet along the way, you can have a deeper connection with them in 5 minutes than some people from back home. I read this on Dame Traveller. She's another travel blogger. I read it on her blog. She said something along the lines of, when you go travelling, you sort of learn this new language, and it's not English, it's not Spanish, it's not Mandarin, it's not Portuguese. This new language is the understanding of growing and coming out of your comfort zone and feeling more at home in a foreign country than you do back where you're from. When you go home, it's almost as if you've learnt this new language, but nobody back at home speaks it. And it's kind of hard to communicate how you feel, and this new person you've become, you can't really express exactly how you feel. All you want to do is go back out there and go back travelling, and you can speak this new language that you've learnt with other people, and that being the language of growth and stepping out of your comfort zone and travelling and exploring new places. I know a lot of people that listen to this podcast are travellers, so you might have experienced this feeling in the past, or if you've not been home yet, then maybe in the future. The nature of travelling is you're always on the go. Visa restrictions means that you can't always stay in the same place for too long. Of course, I do have the option to extend, which I will be doing, but in the meantime, I feel myself wanting to go to a new place for a bit before I go back to Australia. I think one of the hardest things is feeling anxious about where you're going to be next. Currently, I'm anxious because I don't know where I'm going to be going in June. I don't know if I want to move somewhere else or carry on travelling. I don't know if I want to go back to Bali, or go to the Philippines, or go to Japan, or Hong Kong, or go to South America, or come back to Europe, or stay in Australia, or go to New Zealand. There's all these possibilities, and the world quite literally is my oyster. Yet, I think I might have spoke about this previously, I feel the opposite of claustrophobic. Imagine you've been dropped into the middle of the ocean and you have no idea which way to swim. You don't know where the nearest point of land is. You don't know if you should be travelling forwards or backwards or left or right. You just don't know which way to go. You don't know which way is correct. Sometimes travelling feels a bit like that, especially if you're coming to the end of staying in one place and you're not quite sure yet where the next place will be. Similarly, say if you're looking for a job or looking to do your 88 days farm work and you're not quite sure where you'll be next month, that can be quite scary. But what I've learned is to do as much work as you can to be where you want to be, if you even know where that is. But just trust that things will work out in your favour, things will work out the way they're meant to be, and to just trust the process, trust yourself, trust that things will be okay. One of the hardest things that you have to do when travelling, and it's kind of funny because you always know that you're going to have to do it, but that doesn't make it any easier when you do come round to it, and it's saying goodbye to the people you meet along the way. I don't think you'll truly realise how deep a connection you can make with someone in such a short amount of time while you're travelling with them, and I think you probably won't comprehend it until you do it yourself. I've known people for several months and I feel like I could consider them my best friends. Equally, I've known people for many years and I wouldn't even say I'm half as close with them as some of the other people I know. But inevitably, you will cross paths with them and spend a short time with them, whether that be a few weeks or a few months or even just a few days. But then you'll go your way, they'll go their way, and you may never see them again. If you're lucky, then you can arrange to meet back up with them at a later date. I have had the pleasure of doing so with a few people I've met over the last year. But that's not always the case with some people, and you kind of just have to accept that before you even meet them. You'll go on so many adventures together, you'll share the same stories together, you can say that you've done the same tours together and been to the same places and tasted the same food and gone and met the same people and been to the same parties, and then one day you'll have to say goodbye to them forever. And yeah, it does get sad, and I have shed a few tears in the past because of that, but there's so many people in the world that you're going to meet. There are 7.8 billion people in the world, and you're going to cross paths with many more people in the future. There's plenty more friends to be made, and without letting go of what was in the past, you can't grab hold of what's in the future. You have to keep going, keep moving forward, keep experiencing new things, and keep meeting new people. And if the friendship or relationship was worth it on both ends, then you guys will meet again. And if you don't, then you can just cherish what you had to begin with. Another struggle that you will face, and I have faced and am facing currently, is visa struggles. Now, different countries have different rules depending on where you're from and what your intentions are in each place. If you want to work, if you want to travel, if you intend to live there, if you want to be there for a short amount of time, for a long period of time, there's different rules and regulations that you need to abide by. Now, for example, when I first went to Vietnam, I bought a visa in advance, so I was able to stay there for 1 month. However, I did meet a lot of people who didn't book their visa in advance and were only able to be in Vietnam for 2 weeks. They didn't realise how much Vietnam had to offer, and as a result, they had to skip a lot of things out because their visa wouldn't allow them to stay as long as they wanted. I did meet a few people who did the south of Vietnam, then flew out to go to a different country in order to be able to come back on a different visa. Now, yes, that's possible, but do you really want to be flying back and forth to different countries? Well, maybe you do. I mean, it's all an adventure, right? There's many different visas that you can be on if you want to come to Australia. For example, the working holiday 417 visa, the work and holiday visa, which is a completely different thing. You can be on a tourist visa, you can be on a student visa, a partner visa, a sponsorship. There's so many different ways you can come into the country. And it can get confusing, but what I would recommend is to just do your research in advance. Some visas you can only apply onshore, some visas you have to apply offshore, some you can do both. But yeah, make sure you do your research well in advance so that you don't get caught out. I think it's worth mentioning, if you're on the working holiday visa, the 417, which is actually quite popular, you may or may not have considered that. If you're on the first year and you're from the UK or similar countries, then you would have heard about the 88 days you have to do in order to apply for the second year visa. Now, traditionally, before COVID was a thing, you had to do 88 days worth of farm work, whether that be picking bananas or strawberries or lettuce or anything like that. You would need to do that for around 3 months in order to be able to apply for the second year. Now, since COVID has been and gone, you can also do hospitality work or tourist work within a regional area, and that also counts towards the 88 days. So instead of working on a farm, you can do hospitality work. So, say, for example, working in a pub, or working as a waitress or waiter, or doing that kind of job in a specific area that has been pre-approved and is on the list on the government website. I'm currently, as you may know, working in a little town called Dysart in a bar, which is actually quite fun. I don't mind it. But yeah, that's my visa situation, and you just need to bear that in mind, that you'll need to do something like that if you do come to Australia and if you are thinking about staying for a second year. It is worth noting that the UK and Australia have made an agreement that if you want to come here on a working holiday visa, you won't need to do your farm work or regional work anymore. However, they haven't actually set out a date. They said it's going to be within the next 2 years. However, we don't exactly know when. So for the time being, you do still need to do your regional work or your farm work, but in the next however long, you won't need to. What I think is shocking is, for the first year, you only need to do 3 months of this work, which is okay. But for the second year, you need to do 6 months worth of this regional work or farm work, which I think is astonishing. That's half of your time you'll be in the country. So really, you've only got 6 months to enjoy yourself, and I think that's actually quite cheeky. But it is what it is, for now anyway. When you go and stay in hostels or go on tours and you meet people and you make friends and you get along with them, I think it's quite unrealistic to say that you're going to get along with everyone. Not everyone is going to be your friend. You're not going to like everyone, although everyone kind of does have the same mindset or similar mindset as you do in terms of like getting out and exploring and being free and not doing a 9 to 5 and traveling. It doesn't mean to say that you're going to get along with these people, but that's okay because you can't expect to get along with everyone. What it kind of does say is that when you do meet those people that you get along with and you just click with, you can appreciate them that little bit more. I've met people pretty much everywhere I've been, and there's been somebody that I don't like or I don't really connect with or I don't really want to give them the time of day, but I'm never rude. I don't say anything that doesn't need to be said and just get on with my own life. I don't need to get along with everyone. It doesn't give me any sort of validation. It's completely normal and it's fine, and you know what? They probably don't like me either, but that's fine as well. I think if you're in a situation where you're not quite comfortable with the people you're around, then it's easy to feel trapped and it's easy to think, oh, why did I come travelling? This is not what I expected it to be. But just have faith and know that you will find people that you get along with. And if you don't like a place because of the people, you can just get up and go on to the next place. It's absolutely fine. That's what travelling's all about. It's finding out what you do like, what you don't like, who you do like, who you don't like. And the more you learn about other people, the more you kind of learn about yourself. It kind of is a reflection on yourself as well. If you don't like this person for this reason, what does that say about you? There's a fine line between being free and being lonely. And the way I would define it is, if you're free, you're content within yourself, you're happy to be yourself and alone, and you're enjoying it. There was a quote by Charles Bukowski, and he said, "And when nobody wakes you up in the morning, and when nobody waits for you at night, and when you can do whatever you want, what do you call it? Freedom or loneliness?" What would you call that? To me, I think it all boils down to how you're feeling inside. Do you feel accomplished and satisfied within yourself? Or are you constantly searching for validation within others? Are you happy to go for a walk at night alone on the beach and watch the sunset? Or does that make you feel lonely, like nobody else is there with you? I get both ways, and I've felt both ways as well since travelling. Sometimes it can be lonely, and sometimes it can be peaceful. There may be times where you wish you were with a friend or a partner and you could travel with them, and all the problems that you face, you can solve them together. Are we going to go to this country? Are we going to go to that country? Is this visa site a scam, or does this seem legit? All the little things that you try and hack away at when you're travelling, all those tiny little problems. It would be nice to have that to share with somebody, but then at the same time, do you really want to be relying on somebody else? Or would you feel better knowing that you can do this yourself and you can tackle this problem front on your own? Obviously, you don't want to be feeling lonely, but if you're solo travelling, you're going to be alone a lot of the time, and that's okay. Just make sure that when you are spending time with people, you enjoy their company and they're adding value to your life rather than draining you. There's no point in hanging out with people for the sake of hanging out with them if you don't really enjoy their company. And even if they don't enjoy your company, but that's a them problem. I've felt lonely at times when I've been with a room full of people and I just feel completely unseen and unheard, and as if I wasn't there, my absence wouldn't make a difference to the room. And at the same time, I haven't felt lonely when I've been by myself and I've gone on walks alone and watched the sunset by myself and taken myself out for dinner. Just me. It's the opposite of what you might assume in both situations. But I would rather be in an empty room, quite happy and satisfied myself, than in a room full of people where I feel completely unwelcome. I think that's true loneliness for me, not actually being alone in itself. When you're solo travelling, you become more open to talking to people and making friends, and I think if you were to have been with someone else, then you probably wouldn't be so open to making friends and making deeper connections than with people you already have. At the moment, I'm living in the outback with my friend Rosie, who I met in Bali. We met each other a year ago, and although I haven't known Rosie as long as I've known my other friends, I feel really comfortable around her. I feel like I could do anything and say anything around her and there'd be absolutely no judgment at all. That's the kind of friendship I want, and they're the kind of people I want to meet while I'm on my journey. It's not being lonely. In fact, it's the complete opposite. One thing you'll realise as you explore different corners of the world is you'll leave your heart in a different place wherever you go. Some places will really, really feel like home, and you'll leave a piece of your heart there. For example, the very first time I went to Bali in 2017, 6 years ago, I absolutely adored it there, and my friend Ashley and I, we definitely left a piece of our heart there. But it meant that when we came back to England, a piece of our heart was missing. When I first started living in Australia, a piece of my heart was left in Brisbane, and when I left in January, it felt like I was leaving a part of myself behind. When I come back to England, it's lovely being home, but a piece of my heart is always elsewhere. And then when I go back to Australia, a piece of my heart is in England. And it's horrible because you sort of feel like you're never whole again. You'll never be complete because a piece of you will always be somewhere else. And that piece is across the globe. It's not like England to Spain, which is only a few hours flight. This is 2 days worth of travel. It will take you a long time to get back and forth. It's painstaking knowing that you'll never be able to relive the memories again in the same place with the same people. And even if you were to go back, you're not going to be there with the people you were with the first time round. It's never going to be the same, and you can't relive the same moment twice. I think that's most of the downs that come with travelling. I've probably missed something, but it will come to me soon. Maybe the cost of travel, which isn't that bad if you think about the grand scheme of things, and you'll always be able to earn the money back, but you'll never have this time again. There are down days when you're travelling, however, the pros completely outweigh the cons, and it actually did take me quite a while to write down this list because I actually forgot about all the things that I don't like while travelling. There's so many upsides to travelling, such as growing as a person, expanding your horizons, becoming a better version of yourself, experiencing cultures that you never knew of, trying new foods and learning new languages, and just exploring other people's way of life and different perception of the world. When you return, if you return, you can look back on all the stuff that you've done and realise how much you've grown as a person, mentally, inside. You'll have new thoughts, you'll have different way of thinking, you'll have different way of perceiving things and different goals. The down days are only temporary, and if you really don't like travelling, you can always go home. Just remember that. You're only ever a plane ticket away from the life you used to live. At least you tried it and won't regret travelling later on in life. Okay, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really hope you enjoyed it and found it useful, and also can now set realistic expectations of what to expect when you go travelling. If you've got any questions, as always, my DMs are always open and I'm here to give you advice and answer any questions you may have. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave me a good review on whatever platform you're listening on. It will really help boost the rankings and enable other people to become inspired and listen more about solo travelling. 5 stars is preferable, but whatever you say it from your chest. That's taken from Shits and Gigs podcast. Love you, Boohad and James.